life and layouts. Thanks for joining me for another process video. Today I am working on a challenge from last weekend's Secret Not Secret Kit Club scrap party, and the challenge was to create a layout with how you got a name for your child or your pet or yourself. So I decided to document how I named both of my puppies. This is Ebony on the left, in the black dog, and Kahlua on the right, the brindle. And I love this challenge so much because I've never documented how they got their names. Both of them are named for their color, and it's actually a pretty funny story for both of them. So I'll get to that in just a second, but I wanted to talk to you about the kit that I'm using, which is not really a kit, but I purchased this snap pages. I was actually going to do a album for each of my dogs, like a small 6x8 album, and so that's why I purchased this little kit, which came with it was like 3 separate pieces, so the 4x6s, the 3x4s, and then it was 2x2s and some ephemera packs as well. But I didn't end up finishing it because I have a 12x12 album for both of my dogs, and it was when the 6x8 albums came out, which, a couple years ago, so definitely an unfinished project. And I got on that bandwagon of, I want to get this done because it would be cute to have a small layout for them, or a small book for them. But after I got all the photos printed, and picked up a couple of these packs, I just didn't have the heart to do it because I had the 12x12 albums 2-page layouts from all of it. So it was really just scrapbooking the same thing again, and I don't ever feel like I need to do that. So I wanted to use, I know that I had done another layout where I used pocket cards, and that was cut apart cards, but I wanted to use true pocket cards. So these are some of the techniques that I tend to use when I use pocket cards. So I really liked that striped paper on the back of that card, the green card, but I also liked the saying on the front of the green card. So I cut out little strips so that I could have a 12-inch banner, or look like a 12-inch banner across both 12x12 pages. But I made sure that I paid attention to where I was cutting so that I could still use that saying later on. And then I took this 4x6 card here, the polka dotted one, and I'm going to cut that in half and to make a border along the edge. So when you see your paper, look at it as a 12x12, or if you have techniques like I've used before from the Scrapbook Generations, this 6x6 paper pad 2 collection by Allison Davis. I love that ebook, and I'll link it below. It talks about how you can use your 6x6 paper pads, and you could totally use that for these cards as well. Those techniques that are in there, you can use them for the 4x6 cards and the 3x4 cards, which I'm doing here. So here is where I took another 3x4 card and I cut it, I think, by 1.5 inches, and I end up actually not needing that piece in the center because I'm going to cover it all up. So I'm going to use this distress ink in the Fire Brick from Tim Holtz. And I store all of my distress inks in a container that I got from Joann's. It's, I think I've showed it to you guys in other layouts that I've done. But it's just a small box, and they snap together. So now I'm using my T-square ruler to lay everything down, and don't worry about those seams. I'm going to cover them up. But as you can see here, this is where I was talking about that I actually ended up only using 2 of those pieces. So I could have cut it a little bit bigger, but I do like the contrast of the smaller, or the thinner bones next to that polka dotted paper. So I'm going to line it up here, and again, I will cover up that seam. And then with that thin strip of the striped paper, and then the 4x6 card that I use, I only needed to cover up towards the end, so I didn't need to put the paper behind it, and that's a great way to stretch your paper, especially when you're using these smaller cards. So you'll see now that I have it, I just use that other piece down there. And what I do is I just take a pen or a pencil, either one, and mark where the card almost ends so you can line up exactly where your card is. And there you go. It looks like a full 12 by 12 strip of paper behind my card there, when it was really just a 3 by 4 card. And I actually end up having to take it up because that piece on the bottom isn't straight. So I'll put that back down and then put the card back down on top of it. So I wanted to give you guys the information that's written in my journaling in regards to how I named each one of my puppies. Ebony we got first, and I was still in college. So imagine being a senior in college. I'm just about to graduate from Florida State University in Tallahassee, and my plan is to move to Orlando, and I'm going to move in with my boyfriend. And my boyfriend, we did a long distance relationship, and he's now my ex-husband, but at the time he was my boyfriend. And so our plan is I'm going to move to Orlando. I'm going to try to find a job. We got to find an apartment. I still have to graduate from college. So I'm having all of these, things that are coming up that I have to get done. And he calls me and says, I got us a dog. And my response was, what? We don't have a place to live. What do you mean you got us a dog? And so his friend, dog had 2 puppies, and Ebony was one of them, and he said, you're gonna love her, she's the best dog ever. She was only about 8 weeks old at this time, and he was like, I named her Ebony, and you'll see why when we get her. So I was like, you named a dog one that I didn't say that we could have, the name Ebony. Like, what? I don't know that I would ever name a dog that. But the first time I saw her, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So here's where I cut that green card down, the one that has the stripes on the back, and I was trying to use it and I just couldn't make it work. So this is where I pull out the snap, the 2x2 and the ephemera pack, and I'm going to use the 2x2 cards on the left side of the paper to add a little border over there as well to balance the border that's on the right hand side. So I needed to move my photos over just a little bit to make sure that those 2x2 squares fit. So I'm gonna distress them and then glue them down. And I think after that I'm gonna add some different, I'm just gonna embellish a little bit with some of those other things that are off to the left there, the fire hydrant, that heart, and the little paw print. So for Kahlua, who is on the right side of the layout, so fast forward 2 years after we got Ebony, and we are now in the process of planning a wedding. So this is July, in the middle of July is when he started asking for another dog, and we are getting married in October of that year. So we have, trying to save up for our wedding because we paid for it ourselves. As well as, planning our honeymoon and what we're going to do and who's going to watch Ebony while we're gone, all of those things. And he is insistent that we get another dog. So I tell him, I put all of these parameters around it. I want a puppy because even though we got Ebony at 8 weeks, because of the transition of moving and everything like that, she was closer to about 4 months before I was actually able to have her in my home and be my puppy. So I wanted that experience of having a brand new puppy. So I said that, the puppy had to be 8 weeks old. And I did some research on male and female dogs and how they interact with each other, as well as female and female dogs and how they interact. And so I was very adamant that I wanted a second female dog. And I was adamant that we were not going to buy from a breeder. I wanted it from the SPCA. I wanted it to be a dog that, needed a forever home that was currently in the being up for adoption. So with all of those requirements, I was pretty confident that we were not getting a dog. I was like, yep, that right there sets the precedent that we are not getting a dog. So on July 29th was the day that it was a Saturday morning, and we went to the SPCA here locally, and we walk in, and there is Kahlua, this 8-week-old female puppy who had been dropped off with her siblings. The entire litter was dropped off at 2 weeks. They had been fostered, and they were up for adoption that Saturday morning. And my first thought was, crap. And then my second thought was, well, that means that she belongs to us, and that's the way it is. So when we got her home, we went through tons and tons of names. We tried to figure out different names for her, and we finally settled on Kahlua because we wanted a second name that included a color like we did with Ebony. So she is named after Kahlua, the alcohol, because of her color. So that's the story of my dogs and how I got them. Here are a few close-up shots of the layout. If you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. If you want to see more double page layouts, hit that subscribe button, because that's all I do on this channel. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a scrappy day.